Today, I'm going to talk about how to change your brain from being wired to negative thoughts. Hi, my name is Michelle Lididi. Welcome to Living a Limitless Life, where I help people connect to a positive self-identity in all areas of our lives. Now, to start out with, I want to just kind of go over, an overview, and then we're going to get into the details of how do we change our brain to be connected to these pathways of negativity in our thinking or behaviors and that kind of stuff in our lives. So how do we become disconnected? It kind of comes from being disconnected from ourselves. And how do we become disconnected from ourselves and who we are? We gain a sense of ourself by the reflection that we receive from our external environment, from our caregivers, whether that was an aunt or uncle or mother or father that raised us, whoever was the main caregiver in our life is how we perceived ourselves. Now, in the beginning, we needed that reflection to see ourselves. So if somebody was constantly telling you that you're wrong and getting in trouble and yelling at you, you're going to probably have a negative perspective about yourself. And that forms the foundation of who you are and kind of how you see everything else in your life. Now, if somebody was giving you a lot of positive feedback, like, gosh, you did a great job, or if you made a mistake, and they encouraged you and said, that's okay, that's how we learn, is we learn from mistakes, then you're probably going to be more easy on yourself. But if somebody was really hard on you growing up, you're most likely going to be really hard on yourself, meaning that you're going to look at things like you didn't do it good enough or well enough. Even if somebody says you did awesome, you may still feel like I didn't do it well enough or good enough, and cannot accept that compliment. So this sets how we see the world, like how we saw ourselves, which was a reflection of how we were treated from our main caregivers. It sets the foundation for how we directly connect to ourselves and how we see the world. Another one is the reflection we interpreted of who we are from our caregivers is the funnel of how we view the world and their habits of thinking, receiving information in habitual ways in relation to ourselves and to the external environment. So what that means is that if somebody was constantly criticizing you growing up, then you're going to have a habit of thinking of critically analyzing the world outside of you. So that's how it kind of turns from the external, from somebody criticizing you, to how you see the world externally. So you may criticize the world and see things as not being good enough, or nitpick people in your life. And a lot of times we're not aware that that's what we do, that we internalize this negative perspective that we received from our caregiver, and then we give a negative perspective outside of us as to the way that we see the world, because our caregiver kind of put this funnel of how we receive information, and it goes through this negative funnel on how we perceive things. So, this isn't good enough, this isn't right, this is out of place, this person's not good enough. Seeing another not only do we may not feel good enough, we see other people as not being good enough from the reflection that we received from our caregivers. So that's how it becomes these habits of thinking, and how, something comes at us and we may approach it as, I already don't feel good enough before this situation. I step into this situation, and then you step into this situation and look for comments or behaviors or the way that people look at you as you not being good enough. And that's the funnel that you may be seeing the world through. Even though that the person may not be thinking any of these things of you not being good enough, we could tend to just interpret behaviors, language, conversations, perspectives from people as a reflection of us not being good enough, instead of they may give a negative opinion, and that is their opinion of the world. It doesn't mean it has anything to do with us, but when we don't feel good enough, we're going to take it personally and say, that had to do with me because they don't think I'm good enough, or what, they don't think I'm good enough. And that's where some of that negativity or this defensiveness can come out in our perception of situations. Okay, so So how do we form new connections? This is where change and transformation comes. So how do we form these new connections and get out of this bubble or this funnel or this perspective of how we're interpreting the world? So what creates change is forming new connections. So stepping out of these old connections that we have of ourselves. Either it's not good enough, or I'm not some kind of enoughness, or we compare ourselves to other people. Like, we may perceive that this person gets along great with a bunch of people, so how come, I can't do that? What do I need to do in order to be like that? And maybe mimic or copy them, when it's just a snapshot that we're viewing. They may look great in that moment, but maybe outside of us seeing them, they may be having a lot of issues like we are, or they may be having a great connections. But the more that we connect with ourselves, the more that we're going to have, we're not going to have to compare ourselves or look to other people for how to behave or respond or what to be accepted. Because when we accept ourselves, then we feel accepted by other people. But if we don't accept ourselves, we don't feel accepted by other people. If we don't feel good enough within ourselves, then we won't feel good enough around other people. So it doesn't have anything to do with what do I need to learn from somebody else. It's turning it internal on what do I need to connect with in myself to feel that internally, and then connect with it externally with other people or situations in our lives. The main precursor for change is feeling a feeling. So whatever you may want to, so we're used to feeling, here's an example, we're used to feeling bad about ourselves, like I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not smart, maybe I don't say the right things in social situations, maybe I don't take the right actions in my life, and I don't get the positive results that and these are all subconscious. We don't know that these things are happening because they are habits that have been put in place in the way that we think, the way that we take action in life or not take action in life. And they're all habits. So what we're trying to do is break out of that habit, that habitual funnel that we funnel things through, and we get not good or negative outcomes. And believe me, I was there many, many times. I still go through it. But it gets reduced and reduced. It's not as much, but definitely, I get in my own jam sometimes because a negative habit will pop up, a negative pattern of thinking will pop up, and I'm like, uh-oh, I already know where this, these kinds of decisions attached to this kind of thinking habit is going to get me. I don't want to go that direction. So I get into a new way of thinking, which is attaching to a new feeling. Like, what do I want to feel? I want to feel good in this situation. So I'll choose a feeling that feels good. Now, what does that mean? So what that means is that in order to get out of our negative patterns of habits, we have to start connecting to feelings that we're not used to, which is peace or happiness or love or joy. So just to get into that feeling of love, it's loving ourselves, meaning I accept this negative thought or feeling that I'm going through right now, and I'm going to choose love. And it may feel uncomfortable because it's not the go-to emotion that we usually choose. We may go to an emotion of anger or jealousy or rejecting ourselves that further puts that negative funnel into place. But we want to jump out of that and connect to a feeling of love. And you're like, I don't even know what that looks like or what that feels like. Well, think of times when you felt good. That's a feeling of love. Like, I feel good when I'm petting my animal or loving on my animal, or I feel good when I'm out in nature hiking, or I feel good when I'm around this person. I feel really good. They're really positive around me, or I feel like they accept me. So whatever that is that makes you feel good, it could be a picture, it could be a movie. You get into those feelings of, gosh, I feel really good. And that's what you want to start connecting to, is that feeling of feeling good. So when you start feeling that, that's when you break out of that negative pattern. And then what happens is that you just start building on those feelings of feeling good. So the one thing is just to be self-aware that you're going down a negative thought pattern. And when you're aware of that, then you stop yourself and say, no, I don't want to feel this, I want to feel this. And this is where choice comes into play. I choose to feel good. And in the beginning, it may be really difficult to break out of that feeling of feeling bad. I know there's many a times where it's like, okay, I want to feel good, but it's just a word, but I don't feel it. And I just feel bad. And then the more that I started practicing the habit of feeling good, I knew what it felt like, and I could feel the difference of feeling bad and feeling good. And then I started choosing that feeling good feeling. Now, you don't have to compare, well, the feel bad, feels like this, and keep that picture in your mind. You want to get to a picture of feeling good and when you're happy, and start breaking out of that negative cycle. And then a big thing is when you're feeling with it, you also want to connect the visualization of feeling good. Like you're smiling, or you're walking and you feel good, you feel confident, you're walking up straight. Maybe you're sitting at the beach and just the wind is blowing in your face, or maybe there's no wind and you're just admiring the sun over the ocean, the reflection of the sun on the ocean, or you have a picture that you like, or you're just visualizing you feeling good, and you're connecting that feeling of feeling good and love to a visualization in your mind, and you're morphing that new connection together. And what you're doing is you're breaking out of that old connection and making a new connection, a new pathway in your brain to this feeling good. And it's just, in the beginning, it may feel very difficult, because it can be a different feeling, a different way of you being when you're breaking out of these old patterns. And it may be 5, 10, 15 patterns that you're breaking out of daily. And then as you start making these new connections to positive connections, it will feel a lot better. You'll feel relief. You'll feel some freedom, emotional freedom, to not feel tied down by these emotions that were habits that you just automatically went to. And now you're forming a new habit, a new choice that you can go to, which is these positive love visualization, a picture of love habit. And you want to visualize experiencing this feeling of love. For me, as I was talking about a little earlier, is for me, a lot of it is about the beach. I feel really good at the beach. I can see myself walking through the sand. I can feel the sand going over my feet. I see the ocean. I listen to the waves. That's very soothing to me. It's very relaxing. It gets me centered. It gets me connected to myself and what feels good to me. So whatever that may be for you, then that's the feeling that you want to kind of get yourself in and centered around. So aligning these two things together raises your energy, raises your vibration from a lower vibration of that negative connection into a higher connection, into love, and visualizing the feeling and visualizing what that looks like for you. And that's what raises us and gets us out of those negative patterns that we have about ourselves. And then here, it's called Neurons That Wire Together, Fire Together. And this was by Donald Hebb back in like the 1940s, I believe. And you can look him up on Google. And a lot of people that kind of talk about this, neurons that fire together, wire together, is, well, one in particular is Joe Dispenza. He speaks about this. His work is very powerful. I would recommend seeing some of his videos. It's another perspective to look at that I think would be great. When we start wiring and firing new connections in our brains, the way into that is through feeling it. You know how people say, well, just think positive and just think, love. But if you don't have any feeling attached to what you're thinking about, the brain is just stuck into that intellectual mode. It's just an intellectual thing. Where the change really happens to raise your vibration, it is through a feeling. And that's what really is the core of change and transformation within ourselves, is really feeling that. And then I think I talked a little bit about, in the beginning, when you're feeling new feelings that you're not used to going to, it's going to feel fake. You're going to feel like not yourself. And it's only because it's a feeling that you're not used to experiencing on a consistent basis. Now, feeling negative feels real to us. It could feel really real, like, no, this is the truth of who I am, and I can't step out of this. Maybe some thoughts that you're feeling, but that's not true. It's just a feeling that you're not used to feeling. And now sometimes when I look back, I'm like, gosh, some of these negative thoughts or feelings that I used to feel about myself, it feels so foreign to me when it used to feel so comfortable. Now I look back at the way that I used to think of myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. And I'm like, gosh, I was so hard on myself for thinking those things about myself. I didn't even give myself a chance. Now it's like, I do feel good enough. I do feel smart enough. I do feel enough in situations, and it's not contingent on how someone else is treating me. I walk into a situation feeling enough. But this is kind of what I'm explaining, the road that I took in order to break out of that negative personality that I was in into a more positive personality, into the way that I see myself, into the way that I see the world. So this is what these new ways of thinking and connecting create these neuro pathways. And this is kind of these neurons, these connections. I'm going to put this down a little. These neuron connections are in our brains. And if you look in Google and look up neural connections, you'll be able to actually see the neurons and how they connect in our brain. And that's where, this is like two neurons connecting from old patterns, like I'm not good enough, and then not good enough has a whole bunch of pathways attached to it. I'm not good enough, I'm ugly, I'm not pretty, I'm whatever they may be, and then they attach to another bubble of neurons that of not good enough, or I don't feel smart enough, or whatever that may be. But now when we practice love and the visualization, like a new emotion, whether it's love, happiness, joy, then it breaks out of this old pattern and starts making a new pattern. And love and the feelings around love, peaceful, joy, happiness, and then it connects. And then when we visualize it, it breaks out into a new connection of love and joy and peace, or happiness. Maybe this bubble is love and this bubble is happiness, and then these start connecting and wiring and firing together in our brain. And this is what's going to pull us out of this negative pattern into spiking out into a whole bunch of new positive patterns. And that's kind of how it works in our brain. And these grooves, mind you, have been built, these old patterns that we're breaking out of, we've spent, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years building these patterns. So be easy on yourself when you start building a new pattern. Know that you're going to get there, and that you're going to have these new reflections of yourself that are positive, these new thinking patterns that are positive in your brain, and it's not going to feel, I know when I would be negative, I started stepping a little bit into the positive, and then I still had a whole bunch of me in the negative patterns. But I had a chance to feel that positive feeling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so light. It's just a lighter feeling about myself. It's not heavy. And that's how these old negativity about ourselves and the way that we see the world, and a lot of it's actually negative emotions that filter through our body that form a perspective of the world that's negative. So it's the negative emotions that we have to break up, transmute, and form into new positive emotions. So this is kind of how you form these new connections. And forming new connections, this is a visualization of how this looks. So these are old patterns. So when we have old connections, we have feelings attached to them. I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm just feel yucky, and maybe you just have yucky feelings and you just don't know what words are attached to them. But we do have a thinking pattern that associates with these feelings. And the thinking pattern is, when you walk into a situation, you may have a smile on your face and you're talking to people, but inside you're just like, I'm not good enough, or this person's not going to like me. And you put too much outside of yourself for who you are, that this person has to like me in order for me to feel likable. instead of you liking yourself and you walk into a situation going, of course I'm going to be liked because I am a likable person. I'm fun, I'm funny, or whatever qualities that you have about yourself. You expect those good things, but when we don't feel enough, we expect not good things. We have pictures. This is the visualization. We have a picture of ourselves. We have a picture of the situation that we're walking into as maybe not working out in our favor. We just walk in going, it's not going to work for me. And I noticed that I was doing this, that I would go in and everybody was really happy and positive and we're having good conversation. And I would walk in going, at some moment, somebody's not going to like me. So I kind of self-sabotage myself. And at some point, I would kind of make it happen. I would view somebody's look at me and say, see, they don't like me. And actually, that really wasn't happening. Maybe they said something and I take it personal. I said that they're going against what I'm saying. They don't like what I say. And I would just try to prove it to myself. And the person wasn't even doing anything. And even if they were doing something, I would use that as ammunition against myself to prove that, see, they don't like me. See, I'm not a likable person. And that's what we want to step into. We don't want to step into situations just expecting something bad to happen. We want to step into situations knowing good things are going to happen. And if a negative thing happens, it's really not about us. It's really about whatever that other person is going through. And they can go through whatever they want, but we can't let that influence how we see or view ourselves or the world. So we want to cultivate, now these are the lower parts or the negative or old connections that we've learned to have about ourselves, and then raise it to positive perspective and things that we have about ourselves. So you can sit down with a piece of paper and put feelings as your heading, and then underneath write all the feelings that I want to experience. I want to experience love and joy and abundance and creativity or expansion or whatever those feelings are. I want to feel good about myself. That was a big feeling that I knew that I wanted to feel about myself. I just want to wake up today and feel good about myself and not feel like I'm a bad person, and I haven't even walked out the door yet and I already feel like a bad person. And that just came from my upbringing of nothing was good enough. And the thing for me, it was like, I'm a bad person because I didn't think enough for this other person, and I didn't give myself away enough for this person for them to like me. And that's why I felt like such a bad, horrible person, because I didn't figure out what they needed in order for them to feel happy or good. And that was just very exhausting, tiring, and it's really not my responsibility to figure that out for people. It's my responsibility to figure that out for myself, not for myself. And then put the heading of thinking. What things do I want to think about? I want to think about, gosh, look at how beautiful it looks like outside. Look at the beautiful tree. Because when we're stuck in this negativity about ourselves, it's very difficult to look outside and appreciate the beautiful things that are in front of us. One could just being able to have eyesight and see trees or a pine needle or a flower. And those types of things. And then the pictures, what pictures do I want to envision? And then write, you can even put pictures like on a scrapbook or a piece of paper and put down pictures that you would like to rest upon in your life, whether it's a picture of your pet or a loved one or your family or good moments that you've had in your lives, just so you can get your brain used to resting on positive visualizations in your life. That's happened. Maybe it was something as a kid. I know when I was a tomboy, so as a kid, I would always remember those times when I would play baseball. I played baseball on a boys' baseball team, and I was the pitcher, and I was a really good pitcher, and I was a good thrower, and I would throw very well too. So I remember those moments in my life when I was a kid, and then when I was a teenager or a young adult at the age that I am today, and just rest upon all those different pictures and good things that I've had throughout my life. And the stories, what are the stories that I'm telling you? So one of the stories is we walk in a situation and like I'm not going to be liked, or I'm going to be rejected, or nobody's going to like me. What are these stories that we're telling about ourselves? I'm not smart enough. And so we want to change those stories. Like I would challenge those stories and I'd be like, why am I saying that I'm not smart enough? Because I didn't understand something that I don't know how to do? that's not being smart enough. That just means that I haven't learned it. So I had to rephrase those types of thinking. Okay, this person's not going to like me. And then I would have to challenge my thought and see, well, why wouldn't this person like me? I haven't even done anything to them. I haven't even talked to them. I haven't even met them. So how could I walk in saying they're not going to like me? And change the story to, well, yeah, they're going to like me because I feel that I have some good things to say and add to the conversation. Or I could be laughy and jokey, and those are things that are fine. I mean, why would I walk in saying they don't like me when I haven't even spoken yet? And I would put that pressure on myself. So we have to, when we go against something, first when we're aware that we're getting into something negative, stop yourself and question yourself and ask, why would I feel this way? What proof is there that's proving for me to feel unworthy? Oh, because I'm not doing everything that they want, or maybe I want to say no, and then that's going to make people not like me, or whatever that may be. You start challenging these things about ourselves that would cause us to make us feel inferior or not good enough in this person's presence or a group's presence or whatever situation that we are in. Now, mind you, there's maybe certain parts of you that are like this, and there may be certain parts of you that you're like, I'm on it, I'm confident. In my workplace, I know my job and I know what to do. But then maybe in your relationships, you're like, I have no idea what to do and I feel really insecure. Or maybe in the workplace, a group setting is set up for you because it's a meeting or it's a group thing set up by the work environment. But maybe in socialization situations in a group setting, you may feel totally fish out of water because it's not kind of like a controlled environment that's already kind of set up for you, where you know what to talk about in a work environment, but you may not know really what to talk about in a social environment. And that's okay. That's what we're learning how to transfer. Well, if I know how to talk in a work environment, then let me switch gears and feel comfortable about who I am, not my work that I do, but who I am as a person, and talk about social situations such as, what do you like to do on your spare time? And what are your favorite hobbies? Or, what have you read an interesting book? And just start connecting to having those kinds of conversations that you think of things to talk about, instead of in a work environment where it's kind of, there's an agenda of what to talk about, the bullet points, you know what to go through, you know what to expect, you know how to elaborate on those conversations, and then just start practicing. And personally, if you feel uncomfortable in social situations, on how to elaborate on just what books that they read. Somebody asks you a question, elaborate a little bit about yourself, and kind of have a reciprocation of going back and forth. They learn a little bit about you, you learn a little bit about them. So that this is how you raise your vibration. You form new connections, and in the beginning may feel uncomfortable, such as love or peace or joy or happiness or excitement or those types of things, and start disconnecting from feelings of, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel good enough, I just feel yucky, and I don't even know why I feel yucky. I have no words that can that to even talk about it. I just know I don't feel good. And getting out of that, mind you, is connecting to a feeling and a visualization, and then pulling in a story behind it and pictures behind it. And then that's where you start, forming these positive new stories, new feelings. Or it could be connecting to old stories and feelings until you can start creating more new stories and feelings and thinking and new connections in your present moments. So I hope you like this. Let me know. Put some comments below. Remember to subscribe to my channel, like it, share it with anybody that you may think can gain some insight from this. And until next time, I also want to say, I wanted to say this in the beginning of the video, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I really apologize for taking so long to put out another video. I want to get on track and start putting my videos out a little bit more often than I was. I know I've kind of been on a little bit of a hiatus for my channel for a little bit, but I am here. I have lots of subjects that I want to share with you and talk about, but I also want to talk about subjects that are interesting to you. So put some comments in there of a video that maybe something you may be struggling with, or you're just not quite sure how to see it. I can talk about that video and kind of frame it out for you. So Again, like my channel, share it, and until next time, I look forward to seeing you again. I'll see you later.